Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at one of Autoaim's decks that he took to Shadowverse Open. This one has only been modified extremely slightly due to my own legendary accounts, but I'll leave his original link in the description anyway instead of mine because I think that is a better optimized version. I am running double Bahamut instead of one Ginger and one extra Israfil only because I don't have those, and I'm currently out of the vials to craft them because I've built another deck that required a fair few legendaries, which you should see next video, so keep an eye out for that one. Otherwise, everything else in this deck is pretty standard. All of your early game plays exactly the same, and all that was affected was a small part of your late game, where things like Ginger could be absolutely crazy. As a one-of, I don't think it was too impactful. And the Israfil obviously is big, so I do recommend running at least a third in Israfil as a minimum. If you're going to swap anything out, probably just one Ginger is the only thing you can really swap with any kind of freedom, I guess, would be the way to say it. And if you did swap it, I would probably just up one of these two numbers to 3, just kind of adding to the neutral cost. Probably an Actress or a Impartial Strix, because they're both quite good cards. So, other than that, all the low end is pretty simple. Basic 2 drops all the way through. Witch of Sweets is a great draw engine card. It really helps with drawing considering how many neutrals you are running. And Impartial Strix is kind of your big turn 4 play where you can get a 5/5 or a 7/7 if you are adding a preemptive evolve, which occasionally I like to do with that card. Otherwise, Hector is a massive swing with 3 damage and ward. Really helps you to block down the board while at the same time dealing that burn damage. And of course, Leonardian Mage is a great way to clear off enemies while at the same time using evolve effects to get 4 damage out of this. Another great card to go with Hector on that 5 slot. Illusionist is basically a So Death Reap Life kind of effect after all, so you're mainly looking to use it to re-summon either Israfil or Zeus as your 2 primary sources. Otherwise, it's also okay to revive a Leonardian Mage. If you do have that as an option and you have an evolve, that is a nice free 4 damage, which can work quite well if you do end up being a little more aggressive. Otherwise, I don't tend to use the Illusionist unless I've got, say, Hector. I really don't see anything below this being that worthwhile. I may consider using it on if I use Shining Bellringer, but that's a very outside of the box case, and I don't like to use Illusionist unless I absolutely have to in that way. Otherwise, the top end should be pretty self-explanatory. Sakuhil Israfil, Sakuhil Zeus, and in this case Sakuhil Bahamut, because I feel that Bahamuts work really well in the Daria matchup on ladder, so it's not a bad way to tech into this as a whole. Otherwise, we'll get right into it and take a look at the games. First up is Dragon. Dragon's always fun, I guess, especially when you've got a deck that has a very similar top end. I mean, both these decks kind of take advantage of the whole big drop neutrals that deal damage, especially a lot of tilting dragons that tend to want to be able to outplay you. Rite of Exorcism is a great card to deal with their tilting windmills, as it is only a 5 cost for its main effect, which is removing amulets and any followers. Great for also getting past big wards, or just purely for removing something that's annoying, basically. So as you see, Witch of Sweets is great to come down turn 1. I think it's the only time you want to be playing it. Pulling it out on that early turn, and I apologise, turn 2, because 2 play points obviously. But being the first card you pull out because you're not running any 1-drops is optimal, I think. Being able to just throw it to the board, get its value instantly, not really have anything else that's going to contest it in the early game, and even if there is, it's a good trade value. Other than that, really it's just amassing your draw power to get to your late game stuff while at the same time putting bodies on board to limit your opponent. I feel like that's the crux of any kind of neutral rune deck in particular. It can be highly aggressive, but at the same time you're really looking for that late game stuff, so all these draw power cards work really well. I would actually be personally tempted to run Grimoire in this deck. It's not a card that I would usually play, but I think in this situation it might be okay. Other than that, we see pretty solid. Actress Fina actually gets some pretty good use, along with Rite of Exorcism as just a generic removal. Since we have 2 in hand, using 1 to remove something smaller is pretty okay. Especially since usually when you see the amulet pulling cards, you know they're going to be playing tilting next, so I can pretty much anticipate that Rite of Exorcism is going to kill off the tilting when it's played. They do decide to go for Breathless Salamander, removing my board completely. Not that that's a huge issue. Do go for the Impassable Strix where I can. Getting that 5-5. Really a solid follower, especially since we've just seen them remove something. But Call of Coyotes kind of ruining that plan. Definitely can tell they're going for the tilting when you're playing Call of Coyotes and pulling a 5-drop 13-13. The only chance I've really got is to make sure my health doesn't drop too low and remove any kind of windmill. So we do see the windmill. Like I said, removing it is basically the main goal in the dragon matchup. If they're playing tilting at windmills, you want to remove it as soon as possible. So being able to play that straight away, Rite of Exorcism, remove that, great value for me. Not so great value though here. Gotta deal with the Bahamut. And the only decent way to do that is to really throw Sakwahil Israfil at it and just kind of dump a carrot on board as some extra fodder. The other bonus is, now that we've used Israfil in that way, Illusionist can actually activate and pull a Israfil, which with an evolve is a pretty good 5 cost. Not bad at all. So we see another Uriel, most likely getting another windmill. If it wasn't a windmill, it's probably a dragon's nest. So they're really the only two options I see this dragon player using. I don't see you'd run Canyon if you're running dragon's nest, just because you don't want too many amulets. But Illusionist is going to get a nice pull, and we basically get an Israfil with 10-10 stat line and basic kill. Sorry, we don't even need the evolve because Illusionist obviously gives rush. Something I forget quite regularly when I'm thinking about the card and don't really pay attention till after I've already summoned something. So Bahamut sees its drop again. This time at least I'm getting some reasonable value out of the carrot and the draw power. And we also pulled Zeus, which played out straight from hand without having to worry about Sakwahil is great, because I can just throw it to the face for 5 damage and force them to answer it. If they can, it's still not going to be enough for them just to hit me in the face. It's the great part about staying at 20 health in a dragon matchup. It's really hard for them to combo you down unless they have Dread Queen. Dread Queen is basically the only way they have a chance at comboing me down. Lucky for me, we don't see anything of the sort, and they're forced to remove, so that's a really good sign. The upside now is we do have the Hector into the Felice for 7 damage, just above their total. If not, we could have easily went Sakwahil Israfil. We could have, just thrown something to the board and went with it. There really was a few good options that I could have played around that turn. And next up is the Shadow matchup. Shadow, depending on what kind of Shadow, there's just so many variants right now. I mean, Mid Shadow is still one of the most common, but Reanimate is making its rounds pretty popular. And then on the other side, you've also got things like kind of combinations like Nep, which I showed off recently, which I'm sure if you check my channel, you'll see a video for Rotation Nep. So, not as common. You also see some weird kind of Dark Alice decks pop up, which are also really interesting to verse. So we start off with a really solid Happy Pig, probably one of the best neutrals to come out of Chronogenesis. Its art's adorable, its healing factor's great, and it's got a normal stat line, so really there's nothing too bad about the card at all. So no need to deal with Delirial this early. I mean, they've got another turn before they're going to evolve. It leaves me plenty of room to actually kill it myself. But they decide to throw their own trade anyway. Pretty positive. So this is a good Strix turn. I mean, being able to throw it down as a 5-5 on turn 4 really swings the game. It forces them to have to find removal. And I mean, a Belenus and Zombie Party are pretty good removal cards, so they're definitely going to be able to get rid of this Strix, but it's going to cost them the Evo point and that Zombie Party. So I think them spending so much on this was a real advantage to me. We of course have Hector, working great to get that 3 damage in, and presenting a really nice ward, which when you've got cards like Belenus and stuff coming down, it's always good to put up some kind of ward that needs an answer. But following up that turn, we really don't have much in the way of good value. We've either got to play the Felice or play the Hector into this board, and either option just doesn't seem perfect. But we also haven't used an Evolve yet, so that's a pretty solid choice. So the Felice with the Evolve works out nicely. It is 4 damage to their face. We are going to go into turn 7 next turn, which with a Hector and an Illyrial will work out really nicely if I need to remove bigger threats. But we also do have the ultimate carrot, which on its own is just pure value in the long run. I mean, in the Shadow matchup where banishes aren't common, you're going to be seeing stuff like ultimate carrot just continually cycle back from the board to your hand, to the board to the hand. So wherever you can kind of just squeeze carrot in, always gets you some form of value. So the Hector for 3 and the Illyrial will easily be able to fill the gap next turn for damage, which will be nice. I do decide to go with the carrot because they don't really have a decent target for my Illyrial at this point. If I threw the Illyrial for 1 damage, I don't think at this stage it would be worth it. Not compared to next turn when Illyrial could actually have some value. Being able to remove either a bigger threat or just some nuisance from the board. Not so lucky in general though, our draw wasn't the best either. So it looks like the carrot route might just be the best to go overall. Being able to get more carrots into my hand really makes it hard for them to trade. So they did have to force that trade into Illyrial. They obviously didn't want to leave that up, they don't want to risk the damage. And the Aisha is forced to trade as well. They can't really leave anything on my board at this point. But from here, I've actually got a really nice board clear. This Israfil plus its Evolve is a solid bit of damage along with a complete removal of their board. And keeps me out of range of another Aisha if that's what they decide to go for. So if we did see another Aisha, I mean, it would have been fine because we would have survived, which was great. Otherwise, them conceding just kind of was the icing on the cake. So this deck has been some great fun. Neutral Rune usually is. It's a nice take on a rune deck. I mean, you see a little bit of Daria, a little bit of D-Shift, and a little bit of Dirt Rune pretty much everywhere. They're kind of the staple 3 rune decks. You don't really get to see a neutral rune deck very often, and when you do, they're usually not great, but considering Autoaim just cleared out the Shadowverse open, with this deck in particular at least getting to see some play is great. I mean, it's great when this sort of deck gets to see some play. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Again, this deck will be slightly different in the link in the description below, but hopefully you guys will enjoy it, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.